Hello and welcome to World Talks. My name is Sasha Farbach. As Russia repositions its narrative abroad and flexes militarily in response to U.S. signals, two developments stand out. Donald Trump's order to deploy nuclear submarines following remarks from Dmitry Medvedev, and the start of a high-profile trial in Moscow over the Crocus City Hall terror attack, where Russian officials have suggested, without substantiated evidence, a Ukrainian connection. Now, to help us understand how these moves are viewed from Ukraine and what they reveal about Russia's strategic messaging, we're joined now by Elena Davlikanova, Democracy Fellow, Center for European Policy Analysis. Hello and welcome to TVP World. Good to have you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now, I'd like to start with the Crocus case. So there are 19 individuals on trial. That trial starts today in Moscow. Just give us a little bit of a take of why this Ukrainian trace has been so often pushed by the Kremlin, why that is, despite the ISIS claim of responsibility, and what that means about Russia's messaging and all this.
This is Russia being Russia. First of all, the attack was a very big failure of the Russian intelligence. And in order to push the narrative, anti-Ukrainian narrative, especially amidst the war against Ukraine and amidst the lack of significant victories on the front line, it was a usual Russian idea and a very good topic for misinformation. So that is why from the very start of this whole case, Russians were claiming that Ukraine is a part of the preparation of this terrorist attack, which is, of course, false.
Mm-hmm. And what about the reaction in Ukraine? How are ordinary Ukrainians, how are the public reacting to these accusations and this trial?
Oh, this is so laughable because Ukrainians got used to Russian information attacks, to Russian misinformation operations. And given that Ukraine has been accused of so many different outrageous crimes starting since 2014, for Ukrainians, this is not even something special.
Mm-hmm. And what about the actual theatrics of this? I mean, is this really any form of real courtroom justice on the part of the Kremlin in Moscow, or is this just political theater and all this? And what's the world supposed to take from this?
Well, the world should take from this that Russia never had an independent judicial system, will never probably have it, not in the nearest future, that Russia will construct its own parallel reality. It will feed the world and its own population with whichever narratives that suits Kremlin. So given that there is ISIS that actually announced that it was behind this operation, Kremlin constructs its own narratives. So let's be honest, we will probably hear some other outrageous details, which probably will be fabricated.
Mm-hmm. You said also, Elena, that this is very much also a failure of Russia's security services, of its own intelligence, failing to protect its people. It's not the first time. How is that being perceived in Russia? Is this making an impact against Putin, or how is this being seen by the Russian population?
Again, for Russians, this is nothing new. We remember very well what happened in Russia before the Second Chechen War, when there were probably created by the Russian intelligence terrorist attacks against civilians, and then Russia shifts the blame towards Chechens and launched the genocidal war against them. So it is not the first time, not the last time. Moreover, it is very unfortunate that these events caused another wave of attacks against national minorities. There were a lot of Tajik people who were fleeing Russia. So I think that national minorities in Russia are not safe, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. But also, speaking about safety generally, you said this was also a failure of the Russian security services. We've also had news of these last 24 hours of Ukrainian drone strikes in Sochi. That's also, again, on Russian soil. How does this push all of this into the narrative? Because it once again shows that Putin is weak. He cannot protect his people. So how is that being perceived?
Well, we support all the operations that are organized by Ukraine, because Ukrainians are not targeting civilians specifically, unlike Russia, who 2 nights ago organized a huge attack against Kiev. And in general, this year, the attacks against peaceful cities far behind the front lines of Ukraine have become extremely severe, with missiles, ballistic missiles, and hundreds of drones attacking Ukraine. So when Ukraine finally attacks legitimate targets, this is a very good thing, because for too long, unfortunately, this war got stuck only on Ukraine's territory, and it was very hard for Ukraine to push the basically the narratives that the war should not be located only in Ukraine, because this is wild for the military strategy. And when Ukraine targets oil infrastructure, when Ukraine targets plants that produce drones and shaheds that kill children and women in Ukraine, these are legitimate targets. So we are very happy with how great Ukraine has become with these operations, and we all remember the spiderweb operation. So I hope that we will achieve even more with this strategy.
All right. I want to come back to the oil topic just for a moment there as well, because just over the weekend we've heard also that from India, I mean, there's a push by Donald Trump saying that, there should be a clampdown on those countries buying Russian oil. Indian diplomatic sources, according to Reuters, are saying very much that they still can continue to import and buy Russian oil. What's your take here? Is this going to flare up? Are the Indians going to back down on this? What's your take on this particular area?
First of all, it is honestly very unfortunate that too many countries are still buying energy resources from Russia, understanding how much impact that makes on the war in Ukraine, because these are energy resource income that supports military industrial complex in Russia. And basically, this is funding of death of Ukrainians. We honestly do not believe that U.S. will impose 500% tariffs on as secondary sanctions on those countries that continue trading with Russia. However, any more serious impact on those countries might shift these relationships between India, China, and Russia. Well, let's wait and see, because Witkov had to come to Moscow tonight. Unfortunately, he didn't arrive, and the whole negotiations between U.S. and Russia will probably take place, in a wider format between U.S., China, India, Russia, and Ukraine.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I want to kind of give you two parallels here. Steve Witkov is likely expected to go to Moscow to speak with Putin or some higher Russian authorities as well. At the same time, we have the threat, or let's say the Trump tactic of also redeploying submarines after the Medvedev comment. Is this a kind of new pincer that will make Putin, let's say, change his tune somehow? How do you interpret it?
I don't think that Kremlin will change tunes. However, it is a very positive signal from the White House, because finally the West took a stronger position when it comes to, again, narratives and this nuclear blackmailing that Russia has been using since 2022. Currently, the whole world has seen that more actors can play this game. And given that Kremlin doesn't understand diplomacy in its classical understanding, maybe this would be an interesting approach, because let's be honest, U.S. has enough capacities to strike Russia without even redeployment of nuclear submarines that was announced, and which was very unusual. And in any case, all these operations, they are ongoing all the time. So there is probably, it's not that much about the actions themselves, because we don't know if the submarines were really relocated, but it is a new approachment and a new advancement in the war of words.
You're saying this is something that Kremlin has been threatening for quite some time. It's unusual for the United States to follow suit. At the same time, I mean, if we're looking at this, if we're looking at also Trump's deadline also approaching in the next few days about actually a ceasefire with whatever it's rhetoric, theater, or if it's real with the submarine redeployment. What do you make of it, and what do authorities in Kyiv make of this? Is this a Trump that is moving more towards the side of Ukraine? Is this another bit of political theater?
I believe that President Trump gave Putin enough time to leave the war with certain achievements, and I'm sure that the offers that were coming from the United States after the new presidential administration took office were pretty reasonable when it comes to U.S.-Russia relationships. However, Kremlin wants to always go to the very end and push as much as it can. In Kremlin, people do not know when to stop. So I think that Putin humiliated President Trump too much and for too long, and that's why the White House doesn't actually have a choice, but it has to react. Otherwise, U.S. looks very weak and incapable, and basically it is losing respect all over the world unless it starts taking real actions against Russia. And unfortunately, it is highly probable that we will end up in continuation of this war, and then finally U.S. will arm Ukraine even more, and Ukraine will not be pushed to accept concessions that in the long run could damage its territorial integrity and sovereignty, and also democratic development.
Mm-hmm. Elena, you mentioned also real actions. I want to ask you about this. I mean, the Kremlin always plays these strong messages of strength. We know that their propagandists are playing out very much all these scenarios of how powerful Russia still remains. This nuclear card, I want to come back to that as well. With these, let's call them what they are. They're in a way threats, or let's say strong statements, Trump sending out these nuclear submarines, telling a message directly to the Russians. How is that interpreted by the Russian people? Is this sort of, do they feel more now with fear towards the United States? Is this having sort of any internal political impact? Just briefly at the end.
Well, first of all, there are too many different kinds of people who probably interpret these actions differently. However, when we're talking about the majority supports government actions. The level of hatred towards not only Ukraine but the Western world itself, and this Anglo-Saxon narrative that is used by Kremlin for too long, it is poison in Russian society. And basically, the rhetorics comes back to the rhetorics of the Cold War, when the USSR was spreading these narratives of hatred towards U.S. especially. I think that Kremlin is back on that track.
Mm-hmm. All right, back on that track as well. So with that, I mean, we've covered a lot of different topics here this morning. Really appreciate it, from everything from those trials to the submarines to everything else. Really appreciate your time on that. I want to close there. That was our guest here this morning, Elena Davlikanova. Really appreciate your time. Thank you. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks here on TVP World. But stay tuned. Much more coming up right here, so don't go away. Goodbye.